Welcome to the 111 Approach podcast, your go-to space for deep thoughts, real talk and exploration of everything from spirituality to self-development and the mysteries of life with some light-hearted humour along the way. I'm your host Lakshmi, aka the 1 Minute Healer, and each episode will dive into different topics, sometimes personal, sometimes thought-provoking, but always authentic. So whether you're here for some new perspectives, inspiration, or just a fresh take on the world with a bit of randomness thrown into the mix, you're definitely in the right place. So what are you waiting for? Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the official first episode of the 111 Approach podcast. I'm your host, Lakshmi, the 1 Minute Healer, and the first thing you got to know about me is I always start and end everything I do with gratitude. So thank you for being here and listening to my first ever podcast and episode. And today I really just wanted to introduce myself, give you a little bit of an origin story, tell you what I do, how I got here, and give you a bit of background on who this person is. So at the risk of sounding like Beanie Man, who am I? The gal Dem Sugar. I will put that reference in the show notes because I will be making quite a few musical references because music is my drug. So if I can figure out how to do show notes, bear with me, this is my first episode, I will put all my references in there. So who am I? I'm a 40-year-old. Wow. Yes, I'm 40 today. I'm launching this on my 40th birthday. So I'm a 40-year-old who is an intuitive Reiki master teacher and wellness specialist with a twist because I have a science degree and I used to work in the medical field. But now I help busy professionals and busy people, those people that don't have time for wellness, but I also help companies and businesses all over the world to implement wellness strategies for their employees and their teams. I aim to make wellness easy, adaptable and achievable for everyone, and I do that by using 1 minute wellness practices and techniques, and I combine it with powerful intuitive Reiki therapy. Now I get asked quite a lot, well, I've heard of Reiki, but I don't really understand what it is. So I'll give you a bit of background into how I got into it, but I will do an episode on what Reiki is and go a little bit deeper into that. Now, when I used to talk about Reiki 10 years ago, people would just look at me with a blank face and be like, what the actual F are you on about? But at least nowadays, most people have actually come across the term, or at least some kind of holistic practice like mindfulness or meditation or relaxation therapy. And that's pretty much what Reiki is. It's a type of energy healing. And I myself specialize in a few different styles of Reiki. I combine about 7 different styles of energy healing modalities. And that's one of the reasons why my offering is very different to what most people do as Reiki. I do something called intuitive Reiki therapy because I combine different styles. And so when I tell people that, the follow-up question I usually get after that is, well, how did you get into it? Especially because you've got a science degree and I used to work in the medical field. They're like, well, how does the science part go with the woo-woo spiritual part? And I have no problem telling them that I used to be very skeptical about all of this until I had my own experience with Reiki back in 2015. Now, although I was very intuitive from birth, when I was younger, I could actually pick up on energies and actually see and perceive energies and feel energies that most people couldn't see or feel. So yeah, I was that kid, the kid with the invisible friend, Mr. Nobody, shout out to him. But it wasn't until I was starting school that I realized that actually seeing these energies and talking to these energies wasn't quite the normal thing to do. And back in the 80s, when I was growing up, I was already like one of the minorities, that weird brown kid at school. So I didn't really want to be that weird brown kid who could see and feel energies that weren't there to others to pick up on. So long story short, I shut that part of my psyche down. And in all honesty, it used to freak me out when I was getting older. I used to get sleep paralysis and I used to sometimes see some not so nice energies, which were quite off-putting. So I decided to completely go the other way. And I was like, nope, none of this, please. I don't like any of it. It freaks me out. Even if somebody would say the word ghost or spirit, I'll be like, no, do not say those words around me. I wouldn't watch any horror films. It was really traumatic for me. So that's what got me into science at university. And then I went on to work in the medical device industry for about 13 years. And Reiki was introduced to me in 2015 when I was in New Zealand with my family, thanks to my dad's cricket obsession. he would watch the World Cup wherever it was. And that year it was in New Zealand. So we were like, right, family holiday, please. So we're in New Zealand at my aunt and uncle's house. And the very first night, my aunt, who's a Reiki teacher, the wonderful soul that is Caroline Panestar, she had set up the rooms for us to stay in. And my sister gets a double bed to herself. And I get put into this weird and wonderful room with all these like crystals and whimsical things in on an air mattress. And I was like, I don't mind sharing with my sister. And my aunt was like, no, I've set this room up specially for you so you can stay in here. And I was just like, kind of forced to sleep in this room while my sister gets this really comfy double bed, and my brother and my parents all get beds to sleep on, and I'm just there on the mattress in this room. So then I fell asleep. I was so tired. I ended up waking up around 3:30 in the morning. I remember looking at my phone and I was like, right, I better get back to sleep. I then see this kind of white energy in the shape of like a person. I couldn't see the face or anything, but I kind of knew it was one of my grandmas. And considering that just the word ghost or grandma, no, grandma does not scare me. The word grandma does not scare me, but the word ghost or spirit would have scared me. But seeing this energy and knowing it was my grandma, I even said, I said, Mama, is that you? And I just felt so at peace, and I felt so loved and comforted. And I couldn't see her face, but I knew it was her energy and I could just feel it. And I was like, wow, okay. And then I just fell asleep. In the morning, I remember getting up and I was like, that must have been a dream, right? Like, must have been a dream. I couldn't have been awake for that. So I'm having breakfast and I told my aunt, I said, oh, I had this really strange dream, but it didn't feel like a dream. And I told her what happened, and she had this huge smile on her face. She was like, that's why I wanted you to sleep in that room. I was just like, what? So you're telling me that wasn't a dream? And she was like, no. And so obviously your girl's starting to freak out, because I was like, that's strange. That's really strange. Caroline Auntie was like, let me give you a treatment. Let's see what's going on for you in your energy. And one thing you got to know about me, listeners, is that for me, life is about experiencing. And I live my life with a motto of, as long as it doesn't get me caught and in jail, I'm open to trying stuff. Although I was a bit skeptical, slightly weirded out by what had happened to me that night, I was intrigued. So I was like, let's go with an open mind. And I remember she took me into the same room. She'd set up her table there. I lay down and she put the blanket over me. She explained it like having a massage, but you keep your clothes on. I was like, okay, cool. And she was hovering her hands over me, and I could start feeling this heat and I could just feel something like churning inside my chest. I'm like, what is going on? And I remember peeking up at my eyes open and trying to see what she was doing. And she was just hovering her hands. She hadn't even touched me yet. And I could just see and feel this energy getting pulled out of my chest. It was so crazy. I could see this like grey energy coming out of my chest. It was a bit like in Matrix when Morpheus pulls that thing out of the tracker out of Neo. And I was just like, what the actual F? But as soon as it left my chest, I just felt so much lighter. I was like, wow, is this how I'm supposed to feel? I had been carrying this heavy energy around with me for as long as I could remember. My body had actually just become used to carrying this heaviness around. And when it got taken out of me, I felt like a new person. I had all this energy. I felt really focused. I felt like reconnected to my true self. I was like, something's changed, but I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel really good. And then my aunt went into a little bit more detail over the sort of week and a half I was there. She was like, look, everything's energy. You've done science before, everything's made up of atoms, and in the universe, everything is connected. Everything has a frequency. There are frequencies that we as humans can't perceive, and yet like dogs and bats can hear frequencies that we can't hear. She started talking to me about on a scientific level, and that's what sparked my interest. She actually initiated me to level 1 Usui Reiki on the beach before I left, and I have to do a whole episode on that, because what I experienced during that initiation was incredible. Still to this day, I can't believe that actually I got to experience that. So when I came back to England, the scientist in me was like, maybe it was just like a placebo effect, and I didn't want to offend my aunt while I was there. So I started doing a lot of research and experimenting on myself. I went around to different Reiki therapists and energy healing therapists to try and do a bit of research and almost like disprove it. Every single time I was getting positive results, either physically, I was feeling better, and like pains had gone, like pain that I was feeling had being relieved, or mentally I was feeling a lot better. Emotionally I was more balanced and I'd have more focus and energy. And I was thinking, what is going on? The more research I did in it, I actually found out it's used in hospitals a lot in the US and now the UK. It was like a growing kind of modality that was getting a lot of traction behind it, because there is a lot of evidence around how the power of the mind and the fact that we are energy and everything is energy can help to aid the body's healing process. So I trained as an angelic Reiki master teacher, then Usui Reiki master teacher. I do quantum Reiki, I do color healing, ascended master healing, intuitive psychic healing, all sorts of healing. So that's why the type of Reiki I do is very different. And I'm really passionate now about helping people to realize that your body's an amazing machine. People call me the 1 minute healer, but I just try to remind them that we are all healers. Forget the spiritual stuff. Just as a physical body, we are healers. Our body regenerates itself. It heals itself. If you cut your finger, as long as it wasn't too deep and traumatic, bar you putting maybe like a band-aid or a plaster on it and a bit of antiseptic, that cut is going to heal itself very quickly and very efficiently. So when you add things like energy healing into the mix, that just gets amplified on so many levels. I'm like helping people remember that they're very powerful beings. You as a listener, you have so much power inside you. You don't even know. And I am here to help you remember that. Society has kind of made us think that we are not as strong as we are, and we give our power away so easily and so quickly. And so I really want to work with people who want to reclaim their power and reclaim their energy. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really. I mean, there is a lot more to me. I've got a lot more stories and experiences to share. I have led a very unique and colourful life, lots of random experiences. I've had some pretty unique situations, which a lot of people, when I tell them some of my stories, they sometimes can't believe it. They're like, really? And I'm like, yep. That's why people were like, you should definitely do a podcast, which is why I'm doing this now. So stick with me if you've enjoyed this episode, and I will always leave you with a 1 minute healing meditation at the end of each episode. So we've come to the end, and so I invite you now to close your eyes. But if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. Only close your eyes if you're able to, and take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Hold for a few seconds and then breathe out through your mouth. And I want you just to take the next 60 seconds to be present with your body and your mind and your energy. Allow yourself to become very still, very quiet, bringing in some sense of calmness and peace. And see if you can just connect in whichever way you want with the center of your chest. It may help to put your hand over this area and connect with your heart center. Connect with your soul, that inner being. Use whatever label feels right for you, but just connect to yourself, your true self. Connect through that physical body. Go a little deeper and connect to your energy, and allow this 1 minute of calmness and peace into your life and into your energy. And I'm sending you so much love and so much gratitude for listening. And I hope to see you on episode 2. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I want to just say thank you once again. Please remember to download, rate, review and subscribe, and share this